When a single mother left home on a rainy morning, all she wanted was a better job to take care of her son. But when she looked up in a crowded elevator, she met a man she would never forget, and she had no idea who he really was.
It was a cold, gray morning in the city. The rain had been falling since dawn, soaking the streets and slowing everything down. Patricia hurried along the sidewalk, clutching her folder to her chest to protect it from the drizzle. Her shoes were wet, her jacket was damp, but her mind was focused on one thing: getting to her interview on time. After months of sending out applications and hearing nothing back, Horizon Group had finally called her for an interview. It was one of the biggest companies in the city, and this was her one real chance to give her little boy, Max, a better life. She rushed into the tall glass building, her heart still racing. The lobby was bright and polished, full of people who looked like they belonged there. Patricia didn't, but she lifted her chin and pressed the elevator button anyway. When the doors opened, a man was already inside. He looked young, well-dressed, and calm. Too calm for someone running late to work. Patricia gave a polite smile and stepped in beside him. For a few seconds, there was silence. Then, he glanced at her damp folder and said quietly, "Looks like the rain caught you." Patricia let out a small laugh. "Yes, it did. Not the best way to show up for an interview, I guess." He turned his head slightly, interested. "Interview? Here at Horizon?" "Yes," she said, nodding. "Customer service position." The man gave a small, friendly smile. "Sounds important." Patricia smiled back, a little shy. "I hope so. I've been looking forward to it for weeks. I really need this job." The elevator continued to rise, the quiet hum filling the air. For some reason, she found herself talking more than she planned to. "I used to work in a small neighborhood store. I handled customers every day. People complaining, people happy, people who just wanted to be heard. It taught me patience. I like helping people, even when it's hard." The man listened, saying nothing, but his eyes showed genuine interest. Patricia sighed lightly. "I've been on my own with my son, Max, for 7 years now. He's a good boy, smart, funny. He deserves more than what I can give right now. That's why this job means so much to me. I just hope they see that I can do it." There was a short pause. Then the man spoke again, his voice calm. "Sounds like they'd be lucky to have you." She smiled, feeling a bit of warmth through her nerves. "Thank you. I just hope the CEO isn't as scary as people say. They told me he's young but very serious. I'll probably faint if I have to face him." The man gave a small laugh, but Patricia didn't notice the way he turned his face slightly away, still smiling. The elevator bell rang, and the doors slid open on the top floor. Patricia stepped out, holding her folder tight. "Wish me luck," she said cheerfully as she walked away. The man stayed inside even was the moment Patricia realized. The man she had just spoken to so openly wasn't another applicant or an employee. He was Mr. Michaels, the billionaire CEO of Horizon Group. And though she didn't know it yet, that simple elevator ride was about to change her life forever.
Patricia's palms were sweating as she stood at the door of the interview room. She had already taken a deep breath 3 times, but her nerves refused to settle. When the receptionist finally called her name, she whispered a quiet prayer under her breath and stepped inside. The room was large and bright, with a long glass table and several people seated behind it, but she only saw one face clearly: the man from the elevator. For a moment, Patricia froze. She almost dropped her folder. He was seated right in the center, calm and confident, his sharp eyes watching her every move. She felt her heart jump. He's the CEO? It was hard to believe. The same man who had smiled kindly at her, who had listened to her talk about her son, now looked every bit the powerful executive: straight posture, tailored suit, and an air of quiet authority. Patricia forced a smile, though she could feel her cheeks burning. She quickly greeted the panel and took her seat. Mr. Michaels, as she now knew him, didn't say a word for a while. He simply nodded as one of the other interviewers began asking questions. Patricia answered each one carefully. She talked about her years working at the small neighborhood store, about how she handled angry customers, how she stayed calm under pressure, and how she learned to listen before responding. She spoke with honesty, not trying to sound perfect, just real. As she talked, she could feel Mr. Michael's eyes on her. It made her nervous, but there was something in his gaze that didn't feel harsh. It was steady, almost encouraging. Then, one of the other interviewers asked a tough question. "What would you say is your biggest weakness?" Patricia hesitated for a moment, then replied softly, "I care too much. Sometimes when people are upset, I take their pain personally. I think about it even after work, wondering what I could have done better. But I'm learning to balance it." The room went quiet for a second. Then she added, "I just believe that kindness is good business. People remember how you make them feel." When she finished speaking, she noticed Mr. Michaels leaning slightly forward, his expression thoughtful. The others were still reading through her resume, but he seemed more interested in her words. "Thank you, Miss Adams," he said finally, his voice calm and steady. "That will be all for now." Patricia nodded, thanked them, and stood to leave. As she reached the door, she glanced back once. Mr. Michaels was still watching her, but this time there was a faint smile on his face. She stepped out into the hallway, her heart still pounding. She couldn't tell if she had done well or not. All she knew was that she had spoken from the heart, and she hoped that was enough. Later that day, Mr. Michaels sat in his office with the other interviewers. They were reviewing the final list of candidates. One of them shook his head. "She doesn't have much corporate experience. I'm not sure she's the right fit." Mr. Michaels didn't respond right away. He leaned back in his chair, thinking. He remembered her nervous smile in the elevator, the honesty in her voice, and the quiet strength she carried even when she was unsure of herself. Finally, he said, "Sometimes experience isn't everything. She understands people. That's rare." The room fell silent. After a moment, the others nodded slowly. When Patricia got home that evening, she felt drained, but relieved that the interview was finally over. Max ran to the door to greet her, wrapping his arms around her waist. She smiled, hugged him tightly, and said, "I think it went okay, sweetheart. We'll just have to wait and see." She didn't know that at that very moment, an email had already been sent from the CEO's office offering her the job. And far above the city lights, in his quiet office, Michaels was still thinking about the woman from the elevator who spoke with so much heart.
When Patricia received the email the next morning, she read it 3 times before she believed it was real. She had been offered the job. Her heart raced with joy and disbelief. She covered her mouth with her hands, whispering a shaky "thank you" under her breath. It felt like all the years of struggle, all the prayers whispered in the dark, had finally been heard. Max was still asleep, his small body curled up under the blanket. Patricia leaned down, kissed his forehead, and smiled. "Mommy got the job, Max," she whispered softly. "Things are going to get better." Her first day at Horizon Group was a mix of excitement and nervousness. The building looked even bigger than before, and the people walking through the halls all seemed confident and sure of themselves. Patricia tried her best to fit in, even though she still felt like she didn't belong there yet. She was placed in the customer service department, a large, bright space filled with computers, ringing phones, and busy voices. Her job was to handle client inquiries and complaints. It was familiar work, but the system was different, more formal, more demanding. At first, Patricia struggled to adjust. The computer programs were confusing, the calls came in quickly, and her supervisor seemed impatient. But she refused to give up. Every night, after putting Max to bed, she sat at the kitchen table with her old laptop, studying company materials and practicing call responses. After a few weeks, her hard work began to show. She learned faster, handled calls smoothly, and started earning quiet nods of approval from her team lead. People began to notice her calm voice and the kindness in her tone, the same qualities that had once carried her through the small store where she used to work. Mr. Michaels noticed too. Though he rarely visited her department directly, he often saw her through the glass walls when he passed by. She was always focused, listening carefully to whoever was on the other end of the call. Sometimes she smiled as she spoke, and other times her face showed concern. He admired that about her, the way she cared without trying to impress anyone. Once, during a team meeting, one of Patricia's colleagues mentioned her name, praising how she managed to calm an angry client in less than 2 minutes. Michaels didn't say much then, but later that evening, he found himself looking through the company's staff database, reading Patricia's profile again, her limited experience, her short list of past jobs, and yet something about her record stood out. She didn't quit, no matter what. Weeks turned into months, and Patricia began to feel more comfortable in her new role. She got along well with her coworkers, though she kept her personal life mostly private. She still woke up early every morning to prepare Max for school, then took the bus across town to work. Her life was busy, but it was also starting to feel stable, something she hadn't known for a long time. One Friday evening, as most employees were heading home, Patricia stayed behind to finish a report. The office was quiet. She didn't notice that someone had walked in until she looked up and saw Mr. Michaels standing by her desk. He wasn't there as the CEO this time, just as a man who looked genuinely interested in how she was doing. "I see you're still here," he said with a small smile. "That's dedication." Patricia stood quickly, nervous as always around him. "Just finishing up, sir. I didn't want to leave anything pending for Monday." He nodded slowly. "That's good. You've been doing well here, Patricia. The feedback from your department has been impressive." Her eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected him to even know her name. "Thank you, sir," she said softly. Michaels gave a faint smile. "Keep it up. Hard work like yours doesn't go unnoticed." Then, with a polite nod, he turned and left the room. For a moment, Patricia just stood there, her heart still racing. She sat back down slowly, a small smile forming on her lips. That night, as she rode the bus home, she looked out at the city lights and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. She had no idea that Mr. Michaels, the man she once mistook for a fellow job seeker, had started noticing her for more than just her work. It was still early, but something was already beginning to grow between them, quietly, gently, without either of them saying a word.
By the time Patricia had spent 3 months at Horizon Group, she had settled well into her new job. She was respected, appreciated, and for the first time in a long while, she felt seen. Her days were busy, her nights were peaceful, and life seemed to be slowly finding balance. But even as things looked steady on the outside, Patricia was still fighting quiet battles inside. Raising Max on her own was never easy. He was growing fast and asking more questions about why other kids had both parents at home, why she worked so late, and why she always seemed tired. She did her best to answer with patience and love, but sometimes she felt the weight of it all pressing down on her. Every morning, as she walked into the tall Horizon building, she reminded herself that she wasn't just working for a company. She was working for Max, for their future, for a new beginning. Mr. Michaels, on the other hand, had a different kind of loneliness in his life. On the outside, he had everything: wealth, power, and respect. People stood when he entered a room. His name opened doors, and his company was admired across the city. But behind all that success, he often went home to an empty apartment and long, quiet nights. He had built his world around business, leaving little space for anything else. Until Patricia came along. He wasn't sure what it was at first. Maybe her honesty,
maybe her calm presence. She didn't try to impress him like others did. She simply worked hard and treated everyone with kindness. Whenever she spoke, she did so with sincerity, never pretending to be someone she wasn't. One late evening, Michaels walked through the office floors after a long meeting. Most people had gone home, but he noticed a faint light still on in the customer service section. He walked closer and saw Patricia sitting alone, typing quietly, her face lit by the soft glow of her computer screen. She looked tired but focused, her hair loosely tied back, her eyes heavy but determined. He stood there for a moment watching her. It wasn't in a way of authority this time, but rather in quiet admiration. There was something about her, a strength that came from struggle, the kind that didn't need to be spoken. He finally stepped forward. "You're still here?" Patricia looked up, surprised to see him. She smiled politely. "Just finishing a few reports, sir. I wanted to make sure everything's ready for tomorrow." He nodded, stepping closer. "You work harder than most people here. Don't forget to rest, too." She gave a small laugh. "Rest is a luxury I'm still learning to afford." There was a brief silence between them. Outside the tall windows, the city lights flickered in the distance. Michaels studied her face for a moment. "You're doing well, Patricia. I hope you know that." Her smile softened. "Thank you, sir. I'm just grateful for the opportunity." He nodded again, but something in his expression changed, a gentleness that wasn't there before. "You've earned it," he said quietly, before turning to leave. As he walked away, Patricia sat back in her chair, feeling something strange in her chest. Not fear, not confusion, but a quiet warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. Over the next few weeks, their paths crossed more often. Sometimes it was at the coffee machine, other times in the hallway or at brief team meetings. The conversations were short, polite, but meaningful. She noticed how different Michaels was when he wasn't surrounded by board members, how he listened carefully and spoke with kindness. And though he tried to hide it, there was always a softness in his eyes when he looked at her. One afternoon, Patricia received a call from Max's school. He had been sick and she needed to pick him up early. She went to her supervisor to ask for permission, but before she could finish explaining, Michaels walked by and overheard. He paused, then spoke gently. "Take the rest of the day off, Patricia. Family comes first." Her eyes met his, grateful but surprised. "Thank you, sir." When she left the building that day, Michael stood quietly by his office window, watching her cross the street below. He wasn't sure what was happening to him, but he knew one thing. Patricia wasn't like anyone he had ever met. And for the first time in years, Ethan Michaels, the man who had everything, found himself looking forward to something money couldn't buy. The sound of her voice, the light in her eyes, and the simple kindness she carried wherever she went.
Patricia's life at Horizon Group had slowly become something she looked forward to each day. Her work was steady, her confidence had grown, and she had built quiet friendships within the team. But the closest bond she had, though she didn't quite understand it herself, was with Mr. Michaels. It wasn't a loud connection. They never spent too much time together, never talked about things that crossed the line between professional and personal. Yet there was always something there, a quiet understanding, a gentle respect that spoke louder than words. Sometimes, when Patricia smiled while speaking to him, he found himself smiling back without even realizing it. Other times, when he passed her desk, he'd pause for a moment longer than he should have before walking away. But not everyone saw it with kindness. There were whispers, small ones at first, the kind that drifted across office floors and faded into giggles or glances. Some coworkers began to wonder why the CEO seemed to notice Patricia so much.
why he sometimes stopped by her department, why he addressed her by name. Patricia didn't pay much attention at first. She was used to people talking. But one morning, as she walked into the office, she noticed the sudden silence that followed her. A few coworkers avoided her eyes. Others exchanged looks. She didn't understand what was happening until her supervisor called her in. He looked uneasy as he handed her a printed sheet. It was a photo, blurry but clear enough to recognize her and Mr. Michaels, standing together in the quiet hallway late one evening. The picture had been taken secretly, and someone had shared it online with a cruel caption. Rumors had spread that Patricia was getting special treatment from the CEO, that her success wasn't from hard work, but from being close to him. Her heart sank. She felt sick. The supervisor sighed. HR has asked to meet with you. They're investigating. That afternoon, Patricia sat in the HR office trembling as questions came one after another about her relationship with Mr. Michaels, about how often they spoke, and whether she had received any favors. She denied everything, her voice breaking as she explained that she had earned her place through effort, not connections. By the end of the meeting, she felt humiliated and small. When she stepped outside, Michaels was waiting in the hallway. He had heard about the situation. His expression was hard, his jaw tight. But his eyes held worry. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. Patricia nodded, though her tears filled her eyes. "I didn't want this. I never wanted people to think—" He stopped her gently. "I know. You've done nothing wrong." She took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "Maybe I should resign. It would make things easier for everyone." For a moment, Michael said nothing. Then he shook his head slowly. "No, Patricia. That's not happening." The next morning, the company board gathered for a formal meeting. The photo had caused enough noise that it needed to be addressed. Some executives hinted that Patricia's resignation might protect the company's image. But Michael stood, his voice steady and firm. "This company stands for integrity and fairness, and Patricia Adams has shown both every single day since she joined us. She earned her position through hard work and dedication. I will not allow false stories to destroy that." The room went silent. No one argued after that. By the end of the day, HR officially closed the matter. Patricia's record remained clean. When she returned to her desk, she felt the weight lift off her shoulders. Michaels passed by quietly, stopping just for a second beside her. He didn't say much, just a few words that stayed with her long after he walked away. "I told you. You didn't need to run. You just needed to stand." That night, Patricia walked home under the cool evening sky, her thoughts heavy, but her heart strangely calm. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. Mr. Michaels had risked his reputation to protect her. And for the first time, she couldn't tell if what she felt for him was gratitude or something much deeper.
Months passed after the scandal. Slowly, the whispers in the office faded, replaced again by the quiet rhythm of work and life moving on. Patricia continued doing what she did best, helping customers, solving problems, and spreading calm wherever she went. Mr. Michaels kept his distance for a while, not out of anger, but to let things settle. Still, every now and then, their eyes met in the hallway, and a small, knowing smile passed between them. A silent reminder that they understood each other even without words. Time softened everything. Patricia had become one of the most respected staff in her department. Her supervisors trusted her, her co-workers looked up to her, and even new employees came to her for help. But beyond the success, her heart carried quiet gratitude. for the man who had believed in her when everyone else doubted her. One Friday evening, long after most people had gone home, Patricia stayed back again to finish some reports. It was peaceful, just the low hum of the air conditioner and the faint glow from her computer screen. When the elevator doors opened behind her, she didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Michaels walked in slowly, hands in his pockets. He had that calm expression she had come to know so well. "You're still here," he said softly. Patricia smiled without looking up. "Old habits. I like to finish what I start." He stepped closer, standing a few feet away from her desk. "You've done well here, Patricia. I'm proud of what you've accomplished." She finally looked up, meeting his eyes. "Thank you. I couldn't have done it without your support." There was a quiet pause. The air between them felt different, warm, familiar, yet full of unspoken feelings. Michael spoke again, his voice gentle. "Do you remember the first time we met in the elevator?" Patricia laughed softly. "I do. I thought you were just another person coming for an interview." He smiled. "That was the best mistake anyone ever made about me." For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then Michael's tone changed, softer, almost uncertain. "You've become someone important to this company, Patricia. And to me." Her eyes widened slightly, her heart beating fast. She didn't know how to respond, but his words carried a quiet truth she couldn't deny. "I don't know where life will take us, but I know this. You've reminded me what it means to care again." Patricia's voice came out barely above a whisper. "And you reminded me that kindness still exists, even in places I never expected to find it." They stood there for a moment, two people who had come from completely different worlds, yet somehow found peace in each other's presence. Michael smiled, glancing at the clock. "Come on," he said. "Let me give you a ride home. It's late." She hesitated, then nodded. Together, they walked to the elevator, the same one where it all began. The doors slid open, and they stepped inside. The soft hum of the elevator filled the silence, just like the first day. But this time, it wasn't nerves or chance that brought them there. It was something deeper, something real. As the doors closed, Patricia looked at him and smiled. "Funny how life works," she said. "Everything started right here." He nodded. "Yes," he replied quietly. "Sometimes the smallest moments change everything." When the doors stopped, he turned to her one last time before they stepped out. "Patricia," he said, his voice calm but sure, "I don't want this to end when the doors open." Her heart caught for a second, but the warmth in his eyes told her everything she needed to know. She smiled softly. "Then maybe we don't let it end." The doors slid open, and together they stepped into the quiet night, not as a CEO and an employee, not as two people from different worlds, but as two hearts finally walking the same path. In the months that followed, Patricia continued her work with pride, while Michaels, true to his nature, stayed humble about what had grown between them. Their story became one of quiet love, the kind that didn't need to be loud to be strong. And every time they stepped into that elevator together, they remembered how it all began. A nervous woman chasing hope, and a man who found it when she walked in.
And so Patricia and Mr. Michaels discovered something simple yet extraordinary. That love can begin in the most unexpected places. A ride in an elevator, a shared smile, a moment of honesty, and suddenly life changes forever. Sometimes the smallest encounters leave the biggest mark on our hearts. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes in the magic of unexpected beginnings.